It's late in Hollywood, the kind of night where secrets don't stay buried for long. And this time, the whispers aren't about some rising star or a leaked movie role. They're about Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, and a man who's been close to both of them for decades, Russell Crowe. What began as a friendly connection between Australia's biggest names has now spiraled into something that's shaking up the entertainment world. Because according to sources, and now even Russell himself, Nicole issued a shocking warning to Keith about an alleged affair that could destroy everything they built together. And what Russell just revealed in a quiet, emotional interview has fans completely speechless. The story begins quietly, almost too quietly. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, Hollywood's golden couple, always appeared untouchable. For nearly 2 decades, they stood as the picture of love and resilience. Through career ups and downs, through rehab rumors and endless media pressure, they made it look easy. But behind that calm, polished exterior, cracks had started to form. And it wasn't just tabloids guessing anymore, it was people who knew them personally starting to talk. That's where Russell Crowe comes in. He's known Nicole since the early days of Australian cinema. They were both just kids chasing dreams back then, long before Oscars, long before the fame. Their friendship had always been rock solid. Keith knew that. He even joked in interviews that Russell was like family. But that bond, as it turns out, may have led Russell into a position he never wanted, being the one to expose something he couldn't stay silent about any longer. Weeks before the revelation, Keith Urban was reportedly spending longer nights at the studio. It was supposed to be for an upcoming project, a deep emotional album inspired by life's struggles. But insiders close to the situation claim Nicole began to notice things that didn't add up. Late-night calls, texts that went unanswered, strange shifts in his energy. Keith, usually warm and open, had become distant. And when Nicole started hearing whispers about him collaborating closely with another rising country artist, that's when the walls started to crumble. The name floating around the most? Maggie Baugh, a young country singer whose career was skyrocketing after several viral performances and rumored collaborations with major artists. Fans had seen Maggie and Keith together on stage, sharing playful chemistry, smiles that lingered a bit too long, and moments that felt, well, more than professional. At first, people dismissed it as pure fan gossip. But when Nicole began to feel that gut instinct that something wasn't right, she turned to someone she trusted more than anyone, Russell Crowe. And that's when things took a turn no one saw coming. Russell, according to sources close to him, had already heard similar rumors, not just from industry insiders, but from crew members who worked behind the scenes. At first, he brushed it off. After all, celebrity rumors are constant, and he'd seen what lies could do to good people. But when he actually saw Keith and Maggie together at a private charity gala, witnesses say he noticed something strange. A tension that didn't fit the usual musician-collaborator energy. The way they leaned in to talk. The way Keith's hand rested briefly on her back. It wasn't proof, but to Russell it was enough to make him uneasy. In a quiet moment weeks later, Russell sat down with Nicole for coffee in Sydney. Just 2 old friends catching up, or so it seemed. But Nicole, always calm and composed, couldn't hide it anymore. Her eyes, witnesses say, looked tired, almost hollow. She asked him directly if he'd heard anything about Keith and Maggie. And Russell hesitated, the kind of hesitation that says everything. That pause, that moment of silence, was enough for Nicole to know something was wrong. Fast forward a few months, and Russell Crowe suddenly becomes a trending name. He'd agreed to do a promotional interview for an upcoming film, but when the journalist brought up the topic of Hollywood couples and how fame tests loyalty, Russell's demeanor changed. He paused, looked down, and said something that immediately sent the internet into chaos. Sometimes even the strongest people in the world can be blindsided. And when you see a friend heading toward a cliff, you can't just sit back and say nothing. That one sentence, just that, set the world on fire. Fans immediately began dissecting it, connecting dots, linking it back to Keith and Nicole. Within hours, clips of the interview went viral across social media platforms. People flooded the comments with shock and speculation. Some accused Russell of overstepping. Others praised him for being honest. But the real explosion came when an anonymous source leaked what they claimed were messages exchanged between Keith and Maggie during the height of his recording sessions. These messages weren't explicit. Nothing incriminating in a legal sense, but they had a tone that raised eyebrows. Compliments that sounded too personal. Late night, I miss those vibes kind of messages. Enough to make Nicole feel like her suspicions weren't paranoia anymore. And according to a close friend of the family, that's when Nicole allegedly confronted Keith directly. The confrontation wasn't dramatic in public. It was behind closed doors. But people who were nearby that night described hearing raised voices. Nicole, emotional but steady, demanded to know the truth. Keith, reportedly exhausted and defensive, insisted that everything had been blown out of proportion, that Maggie was just a colleague, and that people loved to create drama. But deep down, Nicole couldn't shake what Russell had told her, or how genuinely worried he seemed. Days later, the situation exploded when tabloids claimed Nicole had issued a warning, not just to Keith, but to the young singer herself. "Stay away from my husband," one headline read, quoting an unnamed source who claimed Nicole had made it very clear that her marriage wasn't a game. Whether that confrontation ever actually happened, no one knows for sure, but the damage was already done. Keith, humiliated by the media frenzy, went silent. Maggie, on the other hand, posted a cryptic message online. "People will believe anything if it comes wrapped in drama." That message made things even worse. Fans divided instantly. Some backed Nicole, saying she had every right to be protective. Others accused her of being insecure. But through all the noise, one thing was clear. Russell Crowe's single statement had started a wildfire he couldn't put out. Behind the scenes, Russell reportedly tried to reach out to both Keith and Nicole, hoping to calm things down. But the trust between the couple had been shaken to its core. Nicole stopped attending Keith's concerts. Keith, in turn, was seen leaving events alone, looking tired and worn. For the first time in their nearly 20-year marriage, the world saw visible cracks in the fairy tale, and then came the breaking point, a new leaked voicemail, allegedly from the night Nicole discovered more evidence. Insiders say it wasn't an affair in the traditional sense, but emotional betrayal, the kind that cuts deeper because it's hidden under friendship. The voicemail, which reportedly captured Nicole's trembling voice saying, "I warned you this would ruin us, Keith," spread online before being taken down. Fans were left heartbroken, stunned that something so private could become so public. Russell, realizing how out of control things had become, released a short statement through his rep days later. He didn't name names, but he said, "Sometimes honesty hurts more than silence, but silence destroys." That one line hit millions of fans right in the chest, because it confirmed what everyone feared, that whatever he had said to Nicole wasn't rumor, it was truth. And he was standing by it. From there, the story spiraled into chaos. Talk shows picked it up. Hollywood insiders weighed in. Even people who had worked on Keith's tours started dropping cryptic comments online, hinting that something real had happened between him and Maggie. Meanwhile, Nicole withdrew from public appearances, focusing instead on her kids and staying close to her sister in Australia. Keith, however, reportedly tried to make things right. He began therapy, postponed some shows, and, according to close sources, even wrote a private letter to Nicole explaining everything from his side. The letter was described as heartbreaking, filled with apologies, reflections, and a desperate plea for forgiveness. But no one knows if it was enough, because by the time he sent it, the damage was already public, and Nicole was left trying to piece together what was real and what was the product of gossip magnified 1,000 times. Russell, in the end, stayed quiet. He refused to do further interviews about it, even when tabloids offered massive money for exclusive follow-ups. When asked months later if he regretted saying what he said, he simply smiled and said, "Sometimes you have to protect people even when they hate you for it." That line made fans realize something deeper. Maybe Russell wasn't exposing Nicole or Keith. Maybe he was trying to protect them both from something, because whispers in the industry began suggesting that the affair wasn't the real story. It was a symptom of something else. Years of pressure, emotional exhaustion, and a marriage constantly under the spotlight had finally taken its toll. And Nicole's warning, the one Russell confirmed, wasn't just about Keith's loyalty. It was about his health, his addictions, and the people around him feeding off that chaos. In other words, her warning was a plea to save him before it was too late. As weeks turned into months, Nicole and Keith slowly began reappearing together in public. Not as the perfect smiling Hollywood couple, but as two people trying to rebuild something real. Fans noticed subtle signs, the way she'd reach for his hand, the way he'd look at her with quiet gratitude. And maybe that's the real twist in this story. Despite the headlines, the leaks, and the betrayal, love didn't completely vanish. It just got tested, brutally. And as for Russell Crowe, his part in this saga will always remain complicated. Some see him as the hero who told the truth. Others believe he went too far. But one thing's certain. His revelation peeled back the curtain on what it really means to live under Hollywood's harsh lights. Behind every smile, every red carpet photo, there's a story. And this one reminded the world that even the strongest couples, even the legends, can fall apart when secrets start to breathe. As of now, Nicole and Keith continue to stay quiet about the ordeal. But Hollywood insiders say Russell and Nicole's friendship has actually grown stronger. Maybe because she knows he didn't betray her. He saved her from a bigger heartbreak. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this story isn't about scandal after all. It's about truth, loyalty, and the painful reality that sometimes love isn't enough to keep the darkness away. And for fans watching from afar, one thing is clear. This isn't the end of the story. Because in Hollywood, every silence means a sequel,